Well, hello and welcome to another edition of Adam's Music Box, where today we're remembering a man that in many ways was the most important element of Pink Floyd's sound, and this was Rick Wright. Now, a lot of people say, well, how can that be? Pink Floyd, at the end of the day, the most important formulators, the most important architects of the sound were Roger Waters and Dave Gilmour, Roger actually having some architectural training. And obviously, those two men were the dueling fisted leaders who were always at each other's throats and who together created the sound of the band. But let's dig a bit deeper. What really created the sonic textures of the band beyond the conceptual genius of Roger Waters and beyond the iconic guitar of Dave Gilmour? I would say this was Richard Wright. He had a touch on piano and synthesizer and organ that was uniquely his. And there was something about it that was so deeply endearing. It was at once very peaceful and very soothing, and on the other hand, utterly tense and utterly involved. And he was able to combine these things probably because of his love of modal jazz. He was someone that listened to a lot of Bill Evans, for instance, and he was also someone that would have been familiar with European church music as well. And it was sort of this combination of traditional European organ music and Black American modal jazz. Bill Evans was obviously white, but that was a style that was associated with Black Americana. And when you take these two cultural influences and combine them, you get the piano keyboard stylings of Rick Wright, who played just about every keyboard instrument that was thrown in front of him. His influence was probably most deeply felt from, frankly, the debut of Pink Floyd, Piper at the Gates of Dawn, a Syd Barrett-led album, up to about the late 70s. And it was after that point that the guys in front started to push him increasingly to the sidelines. And the final cut from 1983, which is a wonderful album because of its concept and presentation, some of that empathetic warmth that was conveyed through Rick Wright's keyboard playing was sadly absent. Us and Them, for instance, on The Dark Side of the Moon, that was a song that was really, really centrally Rick. The chord changes, the way that it evolved dynamically, that mixture of Hammond organ and piano, all of that was Rick. He really brought that song to life and made it the absolute classic that it is. Of course, possibly the most interesting of all the Pink Floyd songs, certainly of all the instrumental ones. And this is, of course, The Great Gig in the Sky from the same album, marvelous. His intro to and outro of the Wish You Were Here album, marvelous. I mean, the whole sort of final 10 minutes or so of the album is really a Rick Wright opus, but he's all over that album. Welcome to the Machine wouldn't be what it was without Rick. And of course, Shine On You Crazy Diamond is so full of Rick's layered keyboards, synthesizer, and organ. Animals, he didn't have as much of an active role in writing on that, but all of that big synthesizer interlude in Dogs, which took up a lot of side one of that album, classic Rick. And his piano work on Sheep, Fender Rhodes electric piano in particular, it really helped make Pink Floyd sound like Pink Floyd. And again, not to take anything away from Roger Waters, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, conceptual geniuses in music. Dave Gilmour, wonderful guitar player, beautiful voice. But there was something about Rick's sound without which it just is not Pink Floyd. And that's why it was very special to fans of the band that this quintessential lineup did get back together in 2005 for the Live 8 festival. And they played some of their iconic songs. Not a very long set, but they played what they needed to play. And I just think that the real pity is that the camera editor, the video editor for that show, didn't really put Rick on camera much. There was plenty of Roger and Dave. Why, there had to be plenty of Nick Mason, but not much on camera of Rick Wright. And I think it's a shame that his contribution, which was so vital to that band as a co-founding member, I think you really need to take a listen to these iconic albums, listen to the keyboards and how this really makes the sound of Pink Floyd what it was. And that was down to the unique influences, the unique touch, and the ability of Richard Wright to paint with chords rather than trying to blow your head off with sort of right-handed virtuosity. He knew what to do to create the overall soundscape that allowed the others to make the statements they made. Like, subscribe. We will see you next time. Take care.